Good afternoon, my name is Ben Malashevsky, and this is Mr. Rinkes. For my senior project, I learned how to use new equipment bought for recording events at Riverview High School. I also created a YouTube page for the high school. Today I'm interviewing Mr. Rinkes, principal of Riverview High School. I'm able to do this as my senior project because of the equipment that was bought. How did this happen?
Yeah, the administrator, appreciate you doing this with us, Benny, for our new YouTube channel. The principals got together this summer and obviously knew we were going to be live streaming a lot of events. So each building had the opportunity to apply for a foundation grant through the Coshocton Foundation. Conesville had actually been doing much more live streaming than we were here at the high school. So they had a list of products and equipment that we just pretty much went down through. Obviously, the grant got approved, and we've been using it all year, and you've been doing a great job, so we appreciate it.
Well, thank you. What do you think the biggest effect COVID has had on our students?
Oh, there's so many.
Right.
It's been a heck of a year, people. COVID, probably the biggest thing to this point is just the unknown.
Right.
What's going to happen next? I'd like to say we're getting on the other side of it now with teachers and eventually students and parents getting the vaccine. But probably the biggest thing is just the unknown, and then we're going to talk a little bit about all the issues that it's caused here at school. But we've kind of settled into those things now, but it's been a heck of a year.
Yes, it has. How do you think the students and staff are handling wearing masks?
I think in the beginning, there was lots of pushback from wearing the mask. Being somebody that works pretty much year-round, when I would come into the school, I'd have a mask on. Since last year in March when we first started this, and we're about at the 1-year anniversary from when we shut down. I think last year it was March 13th, Friday
yes.
the 13th.
Yeah, of course.
So that we shut down, but I've had a mask on pretty much every day since then.
Right.
So I think now we're to the point, we're taping this in the middle of March.
Yes.
People are used to the mask. Nobody likes them. But I think, as I said to a student today, don't be selfish. You're saving yourself. You're keeping yourself safe. You're keeping everybody else safe by wearing the mask.
Right. And how do you think that COVID has affected the teachers of our schools?
Boy, it's been really tough. Teaching in itself, especially with any grade level, not alone high school kids, in a normal year is a very difficult job. When you have 30 kids sitting in front of you at all different levels and you're trying to present tough curriculum to them in a normal year, it is a very difficult job. There is a special place in heaven for a teacher. Then you throw in COVID, and then you throw in remote learning. So we actually are not in school on Mondays. So years now, you're watching this, you understand we're not in school on Mondays. We have remote learning that happens on Monday. So if you're a geometry teacher and you have 80 kids that are in class in school, but you have 40 kids that are remote learners, those kids are at home all the time on remote learning, and you as the classroom teacher are in charge of those kids too. So in a normal year, you get 120 kids in class. Now you got 80, and then 40 maybe doing the same thing, but probably not doing the same thing.
Right.
So basically, you're doing 2 jobs at the same time. And again, special place in heaven for a teacher, but now doing 2 jobs, trying to keep people at a high level, it's very tough.
Yes, of course. How has COVID affected the day-to-day routine of students and staff?
You know what? We still have an 8-period day, but we are definitely doing different things this year than we ever have in the past. I'll give you a good example. We are allowing people this year to use book bags, right? Book bags have always been a safety thing all the way across the whole country. Not wearing book bags, not using book bags. We pushed using lockers. We obviously have a locker for every student. We are not using lockers this year. We are trying to eliminate crossing patterns in the hallways, and we're definitely trying to eliminate touch points where the virus can stick to, where then we have to clean. So we're not using lockers. That's a big one. When you come in the morning as a student, you will see in our cafeteria, and it used to be in the auditorium, that's where students would sit until the enrichment bell rang. That's not the case this year. In the morning when you come in, juniors and seniors sit out in the commons area. Freshmen and sophomores are split in our gymnasium, spaced out. So again, years from now, you're watching this, you're kind of saying, well, they wore masks and they were socially distanced. So we've got kids that are spread out throughout the time. The same thing during our lunch periods, you know. We've got a lot more kids that have come back now face to face. We actually have our juniors and seniors actually eating lunch in the gymnasium up in the stands, and that's worked out very well to this point. We have certain traffic patterns that are supposed to be happening in our hallways. If you're on the inside of the block at Riverview High School, you're literally delaying the time you leave that room just 15 seconds because another thing we're doing, cleaning all the desks. So you clean the desks when the bell rings, wait your 15 seconds so you can reduce the traffic in the hallway. Then you go out in the hallway so you're not crossing paths with that many people. So it's been a lot of things that we're doing to keep everybody safe, and to be honest with you, a lot of them are working.
Yeah, I agree. And how well do you feel that students and staff are handling social distancing?
It's been tough.
Yeah.
It's been tough. I'll use me personally first. I'm not a hugger, but every time you come in my office, whether it's for good or bad,
Right.
I'm gonna. In the past 11 years, I've shaken your hand when you left. All right. Well, we're not shaking hands anymore.
Yeah.
You know, we're barely fist bumping. Now we're giving the old elbow or kicking everybody's ankle, which is really weird, by the
Yeah,
way.
it's very
But
odd.
just that one thing is just so much different because at the end of a conversation, everybody wants to stick their hand out. You're like, oh, not going to do that. Or if you do, you're right away. You're cleaning your hands really fast. So the social distancing aspect, humans crave interaction.
Yes,
Whether you're a teenager or a human being, I mean, you want to be around people, and especially those who are more social. You want to be in a group of people. You want to hear the conversation. You want to sit down at the lunch table and lean across. It's hard to do that. Right now, in a normal year, we would have 12 chairs around every cafeteria table. We have 4 chairs around every cafeteria table now. So just the spacing out piece, again, kids have got used to it. Adults have got used to it. Our teachers used to eat lunch in the teacher's lounge. That's where you eat lunch, teachers in the teacher's lounge. Teachers are now eating lunch in the library so they can space out.
Right.
Okay? We're doing almost all of our staff meetings by Zoom now. And if we do a staff meeting, like we're going to have one this coming Monday, instead of doing it in the library where you have 2 or 3 people stuck around a table, we're actually now doing that with 35 staff members and 2 administrators are doing those in the commons area in the cafeteria where they can spread out. So the social distancing and the masking is helping not spread the virus here at school, but it's been very tough for the human psyche of just not being around people and actually that human touch piece.
Right. And how well do you think remote students are handling their schoolwork?
You want a one-word answer?
Sure.
The one-word answer is terrible.
Yep.
You yourself, we just had this conversation before we came on air to tape this, that remote learning is tough. I mean, it's just very, very tough. And, if you got a question in the class, you raise your hand, the teacher comes over, you get your question answered, and then you move on to the next thing as a student. Remote learning, you're raising your hand, you're the only one there. The teacher is not there. I mean, you're emailing the teacher, and then, hey, the teacher's actually teaching class. So they're not going to sending it. They're not waiting for Benny's email.
Right.
They're going to try to get back with you in 24 hours. And you asked one question that was pretty general, and the teacher's trying to figure out what that really meant. So they give you an answer back, and you're like, "That's not what I was asking."
Exactly.
Well, then you email again. Well, then it's another 24 hours, and then all of a sudden you're way behind, and it just becomes a very difficult situation. Now, for those kids that have anxiety. For those kids that deal with a lot of things in groups of people, as I was talking to a student yesterday, I'm not saying COVID was a godsend, but I'm saying the remote learning and being able to do stuff online has helped those students because they felt more anxiety coming into the building and being around large groups. But as a whole, remote learning has not been good. We're going to have more kids fail classes this year than ever before, and that's never a good thing because now getting to the 21 credits towards graduation is going to be so much harder for them. And as a freshman being on a 4-year plan, there are several of them that are looking towards a 5-year plan, which is sad to me, to be honest with you.
That's not preferable.
It's not good. It's not good.
And do you feel like the remote Monday is helping slow the spread of COVID?
Well, being in school, only in face-to-face learning, only for 4 days, I think has helped. But really, the remote Mondays were put into place actually to help teachers and help all students become remote learners for at least one day of the week. Here's what I mean by that. There have been at least 2 times this year where we've said, we can't staff the building because we have so many adults that are either quarantined for the most part and a couple of them are sick. So we got to go remote. So if you've never been a remote student, and you kind of go, what do I do on remote? All right, now all of a sudden you're a remote student. So Mondays were put into place to help staff plan for the week and definitely for remote learners, but also give every student a taste of what is it like to be a remote student on Mondays in case we have to go remote. When I talk to several kids, to be honest with you, Monday is probably the worst part of their week because they do not like doing the remote work by themselves at home in front of the computer when they can't ask the questions of the teacher when they're face-to-face student.
And since all students have access to being remote, how will this affect snow days?
Yeah, so we're taping this in the middle of March right now. Benny and I talked about these questions a long time ago because Benny actually was quarantined and then I was quarantined.
Oh, man.
But so we've had some snow days, and what we did, we actually took regular snow days, but we're out of those 5 days that our Board of Education says that you normally get for snow days. So what we've done is pretty much any more weather days that we have will be remote days. And because you know how to be a remote learner on those days, we hope there's some productivity when you get those
Hopefully.
So.
And how did the school afford buying the Chromebooks for every single student?
That's a good question. You know, for a year, probably 3 or 4 years, we've had about 540 Chromebooks in the high school buildings. We had several Chromebooks here.
Yeah.
But when the pandemic hit, there was money from the federal government and then money from the state government towards helping schools become one-on-one, helping schools with technology, so every student could be a remote learner at some level.
Right.
So the money from the CARES Act, and there's actually been a couple of different rounds of money that have come from that, is the money that's actually used to buy the Chromebooks, buy the chargers, buy the covers, everything that we needed to put our district into being a one-on-one district.
Right.
It also helped us buy some hotspots that some students that don't have great internet can pull off of their cell phone signal, and then they can use their Chromebook without eating up all their minutes on their cell phone.
Right.
So the money from that has been very beneficial, and I see us from now on, buying more Chromebooks, replacing the older ones, and for lack of a better term, us being a one-to-one school from now on.
Right. And how do you feel COVID? Or do you feel like COVID has brought some changes that are positive things that we'll keep doing after we don't have to worry about COVID anymore, such as live streaming all sporting events?
Yeah, in tough times you grow. In tough times you'll learn a lot. If you were to say to me, how many Zoom calls have you done before COVID? I'd probably say 1.
Yeah.
All right. How many Zoom calls have you done since COVID? I think I'm probably nearing about 500.
Wow.
So we never used Zoom before. Well, now all of a sudden, because we've had to, through distancing, we've had to use these different tools in our tool belt. I think as we move forward, we're going to be able to do a lot of those things. Anytime I had a principal's meeting, I just jumped in the car and I drove all the way to Zanesville.
Right.
Well, guess what? We don't do that anymore. We all jump on Zoom. Is it as effective? Probably not, but it's effective enough that then I can do what I need to do, except for the 45 minutes that I'm driving one way or the other.
Right.
Several of the things we did last year for graduation, we were not able to have a normal graduation ceremony. We actually had a parade that went by every senior's house. We're going to do that again. We actually bought a sign that had the senior's picture on it that we put out here in the front of the school, and then that was given to the senior and they put that out at their house. We will do that again. We never would have done just those 2 things if it wasn't for the way we had to do graduation last year because of COVID. So there's going to be a lot of things that we're going to do. Google Classroom. We had some teachers that were using Google Classroom.
Right.
Every teacher, every student, for every class, for every period is using Google Classroom.
Yep.
That is something that will continue whether we're wearing masks or social distancing next year, because we'll be one-to-one, and it's a good platform for us to use.
Yes. The state of Ohio has permitted schools to wrestle this season, but the opponents are not allowed to shake hands. How do you feel about this?
All right, so again, you're watching this who knows when, so we got all these COVID rules that they put into place, and one of the things was, we're going to let you wrestle, but the one rule they said without wrestling is you can't shake hands before the match.
Right.
So on my answers, and I appreciate Benny giving me the questions ahead of time so I could write some answers down, this is my answer to question number 12. Makes no sense to me either.
Yes.
Makes no sense to me either. So we're not going to shake hands, but then we're going to lock up and we're going to move people around. And then really, at the end, the only other one was the official's not supposed to grab a hold of your hand and raise your arm.
Right.
That makes no sense either.
No, of course not.
So, some of these things people are putting into place, and they're really I think they're always looking out for the benefit of everybody.
Of course.
But in some of these things, people kind of turn their head sideways and kind of go, that just doesn't make a lot of sense.
Right.
And this is definitely one of those.
Yes. After COVID is under control, what is your plan for the high school students?
That's a pretty broad question. Well, this year, as we finish out the school year, so we're about 2 to 3 weeks away from the end of the 9 weeks right now. We will continue to wear masks. We'll do all the safety protocols, cleaning every desk, every touch point that we're doing right now. So nothing for this school year is going to change.
Right.
All those things will stay the same. I think as we go into next year, we're going to figure out the piece of, are we going to have to then build in an online school that those kids that were successful as remote students want to continue on? We will not call it remote learning, okay? But we will definitely have an online component to being a Riverview High School student. We will set that up differently. Your classroom teachers will not be in charge of that. We will have other teachers that just worry about those online kids, all right? We will probably do a lot of things more differently. Here's one thing we did this year that it never even crossed my mind of doing, but we're going to continue to do it. We have pep rallies all the time to celebrate our teams and our athletes and their accomplishments. Last week we did a walk of champions because we had swimmers, we had speech and debate kids, we had a bowler that went to the state level. We actually did the walk of champions outside. The weather was nice. Here in the first week of March, we went outside. In the spring, and I'm pointing to the front lawn, we actually did a walk of champions outside in the front lawn, and actually had a pep rally outside in the front lawn. We got a nice piece of property right up against Route 60. And when it's nice outside, instead of being stuck in the gym, why not go outside? So there's a lot of things, as we said before, that we'll probably continue to do, all right, to expand the experience for every Riverview kid that has come out of this, a terrible situation for the world. But a lot of good things have come out of it, and we can put tools in our tool belt to use down the road.
Of course. And is there anything else that you would like to add to this interview?
Well, I just want to thank you, because you really, once we got the equipment, took a hold of this project and have really expanded it. So as Benny said, we've been live streaming, almost every sporting event that we have here at the high school, all the varsity girls basketball games, all the varsity boys basketball games, wrestling matches, everything that happened in the spring. We're working on a plan right now to live stream all of our spring sports, track meets, baseball games, softball games. Those will all be live streamed too. Any big event that we have here at the high school is going to be live streamed. For instance, we have our academic awards coming up in here the first week in May. That'll be live streamed. Our senior assembly, where Benny will be awarded, some things, that'll be live streamed. So because we got the equipment, because somebody stepped up and did this as their senior project, because of Benny, we've actually started a lot of good things that will continue down the road. So I want to say thank you for that.
Well, thank you too. And I wanted to ask you one last question that I just thought of. How do you feel about our plans for the prom this year coming up?
Yeah, we just put out that we are going to have prom this year, and we are going to have graduation as a normal graduation. So let's start there. So graduation is going to be on May 30th. We will also be live streaming graduation, just like we do our other big events. We will have a traditional graduation out in Don Rushing Stadium. The only difference is going to be, instead of everybody that wants to come, there's probably going to be a size limitation of the number of tickets that every graduate gets. Prom is pretty much the same thing. So right now, prom is going to be at Lake Park on April 17th. I put out an all call the other night, so basically both boys can rent something and girls can buy something to be ready for that occasion. Right now at Lake Park, as an indoor venue, they're saying that they can have 25% of the maximum capacity of that. We usually have about 260 to 280 people that come to prom. I think we're going to be okay with that. So as we get back to normal, get on the other side of the pandemic, so these big events that we literally had to just cancel last year or do it in such a way that it didn't even, like graduation last year was good, but it wasn't like we normally do it.
Right, of course.
We're getting back to those traditional things that we're, number one, known for, and number two, that's what you remember as a high school student.
Yes. Well, thank you again for participating in this interview. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you, Benny. Appreciate it.
Thank you.